The October morning in Boston greeted Valerie Kings with soft light streaming through the panoramic windows of her apartment on the 23rd floor of a tower in Back Bay. The view of the Charles River and the city skyline was worth more than many people earned in a year. But for Valerie, it was just part of the backdrop of her carefully constructed life. At 28, she looked like a picture from a glossy magazine. Long brown hair, perfectly styled, makeup flawless even at 9 in the morning, figure toned thanks to daily workouts with a personal trainer at an elite fitness club. A silk robe from La Perla was casually thrown over her lace lingerie, and Cartier diamonds sparkled on her wrist, a gift from one of her admirers. Valerie was leisurely making coffee in her several $1,000 Nespresso machine when the phone rang. A familiar name appeared on the screen, Gregory Daniels. "Good morning, beautiful." His voice sounded warm and sincere. "How did you sleep?" "Wonderful," Valerie replied, although in reality she had spent half the night studying the financial reports of various companies on the internet. It was a habit she had developed over years of relationships with influential men, always knowing how much her partner was worth and what his prospects were. "Listen, I have a meeting with potential investors today that will run late into the evening. Maybe we should move our dinner to tomorrow." Valerie smiled, though Gregory couldn't see it. Great. Now she had free time for other plans. "Of course, dear." Good luck with the investors. Gregory Daniels was a good man, and Valerie understood that perfectly well. 35 years old, owner of an IT consulting company with an annual turnover of several $1,000,000, divorced, no children. He provided her with an apartment, a car, clothes, and jewelry, asking for nothing in return except her presence in his life. Gregory sincerely believed that they were building a serious relationship, perhaps even thinking about marriage. The problem was that for Valerie, Gregory was just a stepping stone. A convenient, comfortable stepping stone, but still a stepping stone to something bigger. His income allowed her to live in luxury, but not the luxury she had dreamed of since childhood, growing up in a poor family in the suburbs of Detroit. After breakfast, Valerie went to a beauty salon on Newbury Street. A massage, facial, manicure, and hairstyling were the standard preparation for any important event. Tonight, the Four Seasons Hotel was hosting a charity auction to benefit children with cancer. The ticket cost $5,000, which, of course, Gregory paid. At a boutique on the same street, Valerie chose a dress by Oscar de la Renta, black, elegant, emphasizing all her assets, but not vulgar. She had long since learned the rule. In the company of rich people, a provocative appearance will only repel potential partners. You have to look expensive, but tasteful, sexy, but not accessible. By 7 in the evening, Valerie was ready. The dress fit her figure perfectly. Her jewelry sparkled in the light of the chandeliers, and her Chanel number. 5 perfume created a subtle trail around her. She called a taxi. Gregory had offered to send a driver, but Valerie preferred to maintain some independence in her movements. The ballroom of the Four Seasons Hotel was packed. Boston's elite had gathered to spend money on a good cause and, of course, to show themselves off. Valerie navigated such an environment with ease. Years of practice had taught her to read people, to understand who was truly rich and who was just trying to appear so. She took a glass of champagne from the waiter and began her usual ritual of scanning the room for interesting faces. Valerie knew many of those present, at least by sight. Boston, despite its size, had a fairly closed circle of truly influential people. Her attention was drawn to a middle-aged man standing by the window overlooking Boston Harbor. He was tall, fit, with perfectly styled gray hair and an expensive suit that fit him like a glove. But most importantly, other guests were constantly circling around him, clearly seeking his attention. This was a sign of real power and influence. Valerie approached a journalist friend from the Boston Globe. "Hi, Katie." "Who's that man by the window? I've never seen him before." "Oh, that's Justin Stone," Katie whispered admiringly. "CEO of Northeast Pharma. The company is worth billions, and its shares are traded on NASDAQ. They say he's worth about 800 million personally. Married, 2 teenage children. His wife is some kind of socialite, constantly involved in charity work. Valerie nodded, keeping a polite expression of interest on her face, although inside she was chilled by excitement. 800 million. That was a whole different level than Gregory with his few million. Does he often attend events like this? Rarely. They say he's an introvert who prefers to spend time with his family or at the office, but his company is one of the main sponsors of this auction, so he had to show up today. Valerie slowly moved toward Justin Stone, picking up a new glass of champagne along the way. She knew she would only have one chance to make a first impression, and it had to be perfect. As she approached, she accidentally dropped her clutch. The small Hermes bag fell right at Justin's feet, and like a true gentleman, he bent down to pick it up. "I'm sorry," Valerie said with a charming smile. "How embarrassing." "It's okay," Justin replied, handing her the clutch. His voice was deep and calm. Valerie noticed that he looked her up and down, but he did it so subtly that anyone who wasn't a pro wouldn't have noticed. "Justin Stone," he said, extending his hand. "Valerie Kings. Nice to meet you." His handshake was firm and confident. Valerie caught a faint whiff of his cologne, something expensive and masculine. "Is this your first time at an event like this?" Justin asked. "No, I regularly participate in charity auctions." "Have you? Although that's probably a silly question. I read that your company is one of the sponsors." Justin smiled slightly. "That's right. Although my wife usually attends these events. But she was busy today." Valerie mentally noted the mention of his wife, meaning he wasn't hiding his marital status. This could be a good sign, honesty, or a bad one, no intention of cheating. "I see. By the way, I've heard a lot of good things about your company, especially about your new developments in oncology." It was true. Valerie had spent several hours researching Northeast Pharma after learning that Justin would be at the event. "Do you work in the pharmaceutical field?" Justin asked, clearly intrigued that a beautiful woman knew about his business. "No, but I'm always interested in successful companies and their leaders. I believe in learning from the best." The conversation continued for another 20 minutes. Valerie demonstrated just the right level of knowledge and interest, enough to show her intelligence, but not so much as to give the impression that she had studied him specifically. Justin was clearly interested, although he tried not to show it. When the auction began, they sat at neighboring tables. Valerie noticed Justin raise his paddle, bidding $50,000 for a painting by a local artist. An amount that would be a serious expense for Gregory was simply a gesture of courtesy for Justin. After the event, Justin approached her. "It was very nice to meet you, Valerie. Maybe we could have coffee sometime?" "I'd love to," she replied, handing him her business card, which she had ordered especially for such occasions. No indication of her occupation, just her name and phone number. On her way home in a taxi, Valerie felt the familiar excitement of a hunter who had found worthy prey. Justin Stone was exactly what she needed. Rich, influential, and, judging by the way he looked at her, not indifferent to her charms. The only problem was Gregory. But Valerie was sure she would find a way to solve that problem too. A week had passed since she met Justin Stone, and Valerie felt like a chess player planning a complex combination. Every morning, she spent at least an hour studying information about Northeast Pharma, its financial performance, company news, and, of course, Justin himself. The internet proved to be a real treasure trove. Forbes estimated Justin's net worth at $780 million, making him one of the richest people in New England. The company owned patents for several breakthrough cancer drugs, and its stock had shown steady growth over the past 5 years. But Valerie found the most interesting information in the society pages. Justin had been married to Elizabeth Stone for 22 years. She came from an old Boston family and was involved in charity work and art collecting. In photos from various events, Elizabeth looked elegant but cold. There was no spark between the spouses that Valerie had learned to recognize over years of observing wealthy couples. Their children, 17-year-old son Michael and 15-year-old daughter Sarah, attended the elite Phillips Academy private school. The family lived in a mansion in Beacon Hill worth about $20 million and also owned a house in the Hamptons and a chalet in Aspen. All this information painted a picture of a man who had everything he could dream of, but perhaps felt lonely in his marriage. Valerie knew how to work with men like that. Justin called her on Wednesday morning. "Valerie? This is Justin Stone. We met at the auction. Of course I remember. How are you?" "I'm fine, thank you. Listen, I have an hour free between meetings this afternoon. Maybe we could have that coffee we talked about?" Valerie smiled. He was calling her himself, which meant he was interested. "I'd love to. Where would be convenient to meet?" "There's a small cafe on Marlborough Street called Thinking Cup. It's a fairly quiet place, not many people there during the day." Valerie noted the choice of location, not too public, which suggested that Justin didn't want to be seen with her. This could mean either the caution of a married man or simply a desire to talk quietly. The meeting went exactly as Valerie had planned. She arrived in casual but elegant attire, designer jeans, a cashmere sweater, minimal makeup, the image of a successful but not ostentatiously wealthy woman. Justin looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes, and his usual confidence in his movements had been replaced by a slight tension. "Tough day?" Valerie asked sympathetically as they settled at a table in the corner of the cafe. "You could say that. We have a board meeting today, and we have some difficult questions about a new drug. The FDA is delaying approval, and investors are nervous." Valerie listened attentively, asking intelligent questions, but not too many. Justin clearly needed to talk to someone who wasn't part of his corporate world. "How are things at home? Does your family support you at times like this?" Justin paused for a moment, twirling his spoon in his cup. "Elizabeth is very busy with her projects. Charity work, committees, museum boards. The children are grown up and have their own lives. Sometimes it feels like we just live in the same house, but each of us has our own world." That was exactly what Valerie wanted to hear. Emotional distance in marriage, feelings of loneliness, the need for understanding. "I understand. It must be difficult when you reach a certain level of success to find people who see more in you than just your achievements." Justin looked at her intently. "Exactly. What about you? Are you married?" "No. I had a serious relationship, but it didn't work out. Right now, I'm focused on myself." That was true, except for Gregory. But Valerie wasn't going to reveal all her cards right away. The meeting lasted an hour, but it flew by unnoticed. When Justin looked at his watch, disappointment flashed across his face. "I have to get back. But it was very nice. Maybe we can do this again?" "Sure. I always enjoy good company." They met twice more the following week. First, coffee again, then lunch at a restaurant in the financial district near Justin's office. Valerie cautiously deepened their relationship, allowing Justin to think that the initiative was coming from him. The problem arose from a completely unexpected source. Gregory started asking questions. "You've been different lately," he said on Friday evening as they had dinner at her apartment. "Distracted. And you're always reading something on your phone." Valerie looked up from her salad. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. I just feel like you're somewhere else mentally. Even now, as we're talking, you have this look on your face like you're thinking about something else." Gregory wasn't a stupid man, and Valerie knew it. She realized she needed to be more careful. "I'm sorry. I've just been thinking a lot lately. About our future. About what I want out of life." This reassured Gregory somewhat, but Valerie could see that he was watching her more closely. She decided to take a break from Justin for a while, but Justin himself disrupted her plans by calling on Saturday morning. "Valerie, I unexpectedly have the evening free. Elizabeth has taken the kids to her mother's in Nantucket for the weekend. Would you like to have dinner?" "I know a great place." Valerie felt her heartbeat quicken. It was a sign that Justin was ready to take their relationship to the next level. That sounds wonderful. Menton was one of the most expensive restaurants in Boston. Justin had reserved a table in a private section where the tables were arranged to ensure maximum privacy. Over dinner, Justin was more open than ever. He talked about how difficult it was to be a public figure when your every word could affect the company's stock price, about how lonely it felt to be surrounded by people who only saw you as a source of money or connections. "You know what's strange?" he said, leaning closer. "With you, for the first time in a long time, I feel like just a man, not a CEO or someone's husband or father. Just Justin." Valerie reached out and covered his hand with hers. "That's because, to me, you are just Justin. An interesting, intelligent, attractive man." As they left the restaurant, Justin stopped at her car. "I don't want this evening to end." Valerie knew this was the decisive moment. She could invite him to her place, but then she risked taking the relationship to a physical level too quickly. Or she could continue to play hard to get. "Justin," she said softly, "you're married. And I don't want to cause problems for you or your family." He looked both disappointed and impressed by her principles. "You're right, of course. It's just that when I'm with you, I forget about everything else." The next day, Valerie met Sarah at a cafe on Newbury Street. Sarah Mitchell was the only friend who knew about Valerie's real life, and the only one Valerie trusted. "You're playing with fire," Sarah said, when Valerie told her about Justin. "He's not just some divorced businessman with a few $1,000,000. He's one of the most influential people in the city. People like that have the resources to find out everything about you if they want to." "I know what I'm doing," Valerie replied, although she felt a slight uneasiness inside. "Are you sure?" "What about Gregory? He's genuinely in love with you. What will happen if Justin's wife finds out? Or if he decides to look into your past?" Sarah was right, but Valerie couldn't stop. The opportunity to access hundreds of millions of dollars was too tempting. "I'll be careful, and this could be my chance at real financial independence." "Valerie, you already live better than most people can imagine. Why risk everything for even more money?" But Valerie couldn't explain to Sarah the burning desire for maximum luxury that lived inside her. Childhood memories of not having enough money, of her mother counting every dollar, of her classmates looking at her cheap clothes. All of this had formed an insatiable thirst for wealth within her. On Monday, Gregory came to see her unexpectedly, in the middle of the day. "We need to talk," he said, and from his tone, Valerie knew it was going to be serious. "What's wrong?" "I saw you last night at the Menton restaurant." With a man, Valerie's heart skipped a beat, but she remained calm. "It was a business dinner." "Business?" "Valerie, I saw you holding his hand. The way he looked at you. It didn't look like business." Gregory sat down across from her, and Valerie saw the pain in his eyes. "I love you. I thought we were building something serious, but if you have someone else..." "Greg, it's not what you think." "Then explain it to me. Who is he?" Valerie realized she was trapped. If she told the truth about Justin, Gregory might check and find out her true intentions. If she lied, she might only make the situation worse. "It's complicated. Give me time to explain." Gregory stood up. "You have as much time as you need, but I won't share you with anyone else. When you decide what's more important to you, let me know." After he left, Valerie was left alone with her thoughts. The situation was getting complicated, but she was too close to her goal to back down. Justin Stone was the key to the level of wealth she had always dreamed of. She just had to find the right way to get it. Valerie spent the next 3 weeks preparing meticulously. Her relationship with Justin was developing exactly as she had planned. After that evening at the restaurant, he started calling her every day, and their meetings became more intimate. They started using informal forms of address, exchanged messages throughout the day, and Justin began to share with her not only his professional problems, but also his personal experiences. Valerie turned out to be an excellent actress. She demonstrated exactly the level of interest and understanding that a lonely married man needed. She listened to his stories about problems with the FDA, pressure from shareholders, and his wife's coldness. At the same time, she carefully gathered information that could be useful in the future. The turning point came on Thursday evening. Elizabeth left again, this time for a charity conference in New York. Justin invited Valerie to his home. The mansion in Beacon Hill impressed her even more than she had expected. Antiques, paintings by famous artists, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, all of it was worth millions. But most importantly, the house felt cold, lacking the warmth that a happy family creates. Elizabeth is an interior designer, Justin explained as he showed Valerie through the living room. She has impeccable taste, but sometimes it feels like I live in a museum rather than a home. They drank wine, dined on dishes prepared by a personal chef, and then moved to the library. Justin was more relaxed than usual, and Valerie realized that the moment had come. "Justin," she said, moving closer to him on the sofa, "I have something to tell you." "What?" "I'm in love with you." He froze, looking into her eyes. Then he leaned over and kissed her. It was a passionate, desperate kiss from a man who hadn't felt real intimacy in a long time. Valerie stayed at the mansion that night. They made love in the huge bedroom overlooking Boston Harbor, and Justin was both gentle and passionate. In the morning, lying next to him, Valerie felt a mixture of triumph and something like guilt. Justin had truly fallen in love with her, and his feelings were sincere. But that only strengthened her resolve. Now she had not just a romance with a rich man, but leverage. Over the next few days, Valerie methodically gathered evidence of their relationship. She photographed intimate moments on her phone, Justin kissing her in the car, them holding hands in a restaurant, him leaving her apartment early in the morning. She saved all their messages, especially those where he confessed his love and talked about how tired he was of his marriage. But the most valuable piece of evidence was a conversation she recorded on her phone. Justin told her about the upcoming FDA approval of a new cancer drug, which was supposed to happen in a month and lead to a sharp rise in the company's stock. This was insider information that could not only compromise Justin personally, but also lead to charges of violating securities laws. Gregory had practically disappeared from her life at this point. After their last conversation, he stopped calling and visiting. Valerie knew that sooner or later she would have to explain herself to him, but for now she was focused on Justin. The decision to blackmail him came suddenly. On Monday morning, Valerie read an article in Forbes about Justin's plans to sell part of his Northeast Pharma shares to diversify his portfolio. According to the magazine's calculations, the deal could bring him about $100 million. $100 million. 2% of that amount, $2 million, would be a drop in the bucket for him. But for Valerie, it meant complete financial independence. She met Justin at their usual cafe on Tuesday afternoon. He looked happy and in love, which only strengthened Valerie's resolve. "Justin, I need to have a serious talk with you," she began after their coffee arrived. "Sure. What about?" Valerie took out her phone and showed him one of the photos, the one of them kissing at the entrance to her house. "About our relationship and what might happen if it becomes public knowledge." Justin's expression changed. His infatuation gave way to wariness. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I have enough evidence to prove our affair." Photos, messages, recordings of conversations, including the one where you told me about the upcoming drug approval. Justin turned pale. "Valerie, what's going on? Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want $2 million. And if I don't get it, all of this will become public knowledge." The silence lasted a full minute. Justin looked at her as if he were seeing her for the first time. "Are you blackmailing me?" "I'm offering you a solution to the problem. Imagine what would happen if Elizabeth found out, or the press, or the SEC found out that you were sharing insider information with your mistress. Justin paused, clearly trying to process the situation. You planned this from the beginning? I didn't plan it, but life gave me this opportunity and I'm not going to pass it up. Justin stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. Do you understand who you're dealing with? Do you think you can just blackmail me and get away with it? I think you have something to lose, much more than $2 million. Valerie remained calm, although inside she felt the adrenaline rushing through her veins. It was the riskiest moment of her life. You have a week, she added, 7 days to transfer the money to the specified account. If that doesn't happen, on Monday morning the Boston Globe will receive some very interesting material. Justin silently took his jacket and left the cafe without looking back. Valerie spent the rest of the day in a state of nervous excitement. She knew she had crossed the point of no return. Justin was not your typical rich man who could be easily intimidated. He had the resources and connections to make her life very difficult. That evening, Sarah called her. Valerie, I need to see you. Right now, they met at a bar near Valerie's house. Sarah looked worried. A private investigator came to my office this afternoon. He asked questions about you. Valerie's heart skipped a beat. What questions? About your lifestyle, where you work, who supports you. Of course, I didn't say anything, but he knew too much. He knew about your apartment, your car, even that you regularly shop at expensive boutiques. So Justin had already started investigating. Valerie had expected this, but not so soon. What did you tell him? That we're just friends, and I don't know anything about her personal life. But Valerie, if they dig deeper, sooner or later everything will come out. Your relationship with Gregory, with other men. Valerie understood the seriousness of the situation. If Justin gathered enough information about her past, he could discredit her as a witness or portray her as a professional fraudster. On Wednesday morning, Justin called her unexpectedly. We need to meet. Okay, where? At my office. In an hour? The skyscraper where Northeast Pharma's office was located was one of the most prestigious in the financial district. Valerie went up to the 42nd floor where she was met by a secretary who showed her to Justin's office. The office was huge, with panoramic windows overlooking the harbor. Justin was sitting at a massive desk, but he was not the man she knew. The loving and vulnerable Justin had disappeared, replaced by a cold and calculating businessman. Sit down, he said, without looking up from his documents. Valerie sat down in the chair across from the desk, feeling less confident than she would have liked. So, Justin began, finally looking at her, I've done some research on you. It turns out you're quite a well-known figure in certain circles. Valerie Kings, professional kept woman. Over the past 5 years, you've had at least 7 wealthy lovers, each of whom has provided for your luxurious lifestyle. Valerie remained calm, even though she knew her past had been exposed. And what next? Next is that your reputation makes you a less than reliable witness. Who would believe the word of a woman who professionally deceives men? But I have evidence. Photos can be faked, messages can be fabricated, and recordings of conversations obtained without the consent of the other party have no legal force. Justin stood up and walked to the window. But I'm willing to pay. Not $2 million, but $500,000. And that's my final offer. Valerie realized that bargaining was pointless. She had overestimated her position. I need time to think. There's no time. Decide now. $500,000 and you disappear from my life forever. Or nothing, and we'll see whose reputation suffers more. Valerie stood up. Thoughts were spinning in her head. $500,000 wasn't what she had hoped for, but it was still a significant amount. Okay, $500,000. Smart girl. The money will be transferred tomorrow, and you will delete all the materials in my presence. Leaving the office, Valerie felt a mixture of disappointment and relief. She didn't get everything she wanted, but she got enough to start a new life. But something in Justin's eyes as he spoke, his last words made her wary. He looked like a man who was not used to losing and was not going to leave it at that. Friday, November 8th, began with an unusual feeling of anxiety for Valerie. She woke up at 6:30 in the morning from a restless sleep in which she was haunted by vague shadows. Outside the window, rain drizzled, covering the panoramic windows with silvery drops that distorted the view of the city. Today, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, she was supposed to meet with Justin to hand over the money and destroy all the compromising materials. Valerie had already transferred all the files to a separate secure disk and prepared her phone to demonstrate the deletion. $500,000 wasn't the $2 million she had hoped for, but it was enough to start a new life in another city, maybe even another country. In the morning, she visited the bank to prepare all the necessary documents for a large transfer. Then she stopped by the beauty salon, for the last time as Valerie Kings of Boston. Manicure, styling, light makeup. She wanted to look her best for the final meeting with the man who had unwittingly provided her with financial independence. At 12:30, Valerie returned home. The luxurious apartment in Back Bay no longer felt like home to her, more like a set for a play that was coming to an end. She was already mentally planning what she would take with her and what she would leave behind. Most of the designer clothes and jewelry could be sold for extra cash. At 1 o'clock, the phone rang. It was Justin. "Valerie, I need to reschedule our meeting for later. Something urgent has come up at the office." "What time?" 9 o'clock tonight. I'll come to your place." There was a strange note in his voice, but Valerie didn't think much of it. Perhaps he was just nervous about handing over such a large sum of money. "Okay. I'll be waiting for you at 9. Valerie spent the rest of the time preparing for her departure. She packed her most valuable belongings into 2 suitcases and put her documents, cash, and jewelry into a special bag. By 8 o'clock in the evening, everything was ready. At 8:30, she took a shower and changed into a comfortable but elegant outfit, a silk blouse and designer trousers. She put on her makeup and did her hair. Even in such a situation, Valerie couldn't allow herself to look unkempt. At exactly 9 o'clock in the evening, the doorbell rang. Valerie went to the video phone, but the screen showed only an empty hallway. Strange, usually the concierge warned her about visitors. "Who's there?" she asked through the intercom. "Courier service? A package for Valerie Kings?" Valerie frowned. She wasn't expecting any packages, and the timing was odd. But maybe Justin had decided to send the documents early. She opened the door, leaving the chain on. A figure in dark clothes and a cap stood in the hallway, their face hidden. "What package?" "From Mr. Stone. I need your signature." Valerie removed the chain and opened the door wider. At that moment, the figure stepped forward sharply, pushing her inside the apartment. Valerie tried to scream, but a strong hand covered her mouth. "Quiet," whispered the stranger. "Don't scream and it'll be over quickly." Valerie saw the glint of metal in the attacker's hand. A knife. Panic seized her, but she tried to remain calm. "What do you want?" "Money? Jewelry? It's all in the safe in the bedroom. I'll give you the code." "I only want one thing." The voice was muffled, distorted. "For you to shut up forever." At that moment, Valerie realized this wasn't a robbery. Someone wanted her dead. Justin? Or someone from her past? She tried to break free, but the attacker was stronger. The struggle lasted several minutes. Valerie managed to reach the kitchen table and grab a heavy vase, but her blow missed its mark. The attacker dodged and struck back with a knife. Pain shot through her stomach, then her chest. Valerie fell to the marble kitchen floor, feeling the life drain from her. The last thing she saw was the silhouette of the killer searching her apartment. Saturday morning began for the concierge of a prestigious Back Bay building with a routine check of the floors. Mr. Phillips had been in this position for 12 years and knew the habits of all the residents well. Miss Kings from apartment 2304 usually picked up her mail early in the morning, but today her correspondence was still lying in the box. This could have been normal, Wealthy residents sometimes left for the weekend without notifying the staff. But something made Mr. Phillips go up to the 23rd floor to check. The apartment door was ajar. This was definitely not normal. Miss Kings was a very cautious woman and never left her door open. "Miss Kings," he called, peering into the hallway. "Is everything all right?" Silence. Phillips pushed the door wider and stepped inside. What he saw in the kitchen made his heart skip a beat. Valerie Kings was lying on the floor in a pool of blood. Her light-colored blouse was soaked with scarlet liquid, and her eyes stared lifelessly at the ceiling. Mr. Phillips dialed 911 with trembling hands. Detective Jake Morgan arrived at the crime scene at 10:30 in the morning. At 42, he had investigated hundreds of murders, but each new case still aroused his professional interest, especially those that took place in the city's elite neighborhoods. The apartment on Marlborough Street was worth at least $2 million. Panoramic windows, designer furniture, works of art on the walls. The victim clearly belonged to the upper class, which made the case potentially difficult. Rich people had complicated relationships, hidden motives, and resources to conceal the truth. "What do we have?" Morgan asked Officer Jenkins, the first to arrive on the scene. "Valerie Kings, 28 years old. The body was discovered by the concierge around 10 in the morning. Multiple stab wounds, estimated time of death between 9 and 11 on Friday night." Morgan surveyed the crime scene. There were few signs of a struggle, a fallen vase, an overturned chair. Either the attack was sudden or the victim knew the killer and let him in willingly. "Any signs of robbery?" Strangely enough, no. The jewelry is still here, and the expensive electronics are untouched, although the officer pointed to the open safe in the bedroom. The safe has been opened, but it's unclear what was taken from it. Morgan approached the safe. It was a professional job. The lock had been picked without damaging the body. That required skill or special equipment. "Any information about the victim?" She didn't officially work anywhere, but judging by her standard of living, she had significant sources of income. In the bedroom, Morgan found 2 packed suitcases and a bag of documents. It looked like Valerie was planning to go somewhere, perhaps for a long time. Initial interviews with neighbors did not yield much information. Valerie was polite but reserved. She regularly had male visitors, usually respectable, well-dressed middle-aged men. Their cars were expensive but varied. None of the neighbors could provide names. The breakthrough came when Morgan examined the victim's phone records. The last call came at 1 p.m. on Friday from Justin Stone. The name sounded familiar, and a quick check revealed that he was the CEO of a large pharmaceutical company. That evening, Morgan sat in his office studying Valerie's financial records. Bank statements showed regular large deposits from various sources, no salaries or official income. The money came in transfers from private individuals. His assistant, Detective Rodriguez, entered the office with a folder of documents. "Jake, I have some interesting information about our victim." "I'm listening." "I contacted private investigator Mark Coleman. It turns out he was conducting a background check on Valerie Kings for a client this week." Morgan looked up. "Who is the client?" "He can't reveal the name, citing confidentiality. But he says it was an influential businessman who wanted to know more about the woman he was involved with." "What did he find out?" Rodriguez opened the folder. Valerie Kings led a lifestyle that could be described as that of a professional mistress. Over the past 5 years, she had several long-term relationships with wealthy men, each of whom provided for her financially. Morgan took the documents. Photos of Valerie with different men in restaurants, hotels, at events, bank transfers with the names of the senders, a list of addresses where she lived and who paid the rent. Who are these men? Gregory Daniels, owner of an IT company. Robert Houston, hedge fund manager. David Mitchell, owner of a restaurant chain, and a few others, all wealthy, all married or previously married. The picture was starting to become clearer. Valerie was a pro at getting money out of rich guys. But what led to her murder? Rodriguez, start checking all these guys' alibis for Friday night. Start with Justin Stone. He was the last one to call her. The next morning, Morgan went to the Northeast Pharma office. Justin Stone agreed to meet, but he looked tense. Detective Morgan, I understand you're investigating Valerie's death. It's a terrible tragedy. Did you know Miss Kings? We met a few times. We met at a charity event. Morgan studied Stone's face. The experienced businessman controlled his emotions, but the detective saw signs of stress. When was the last time you spoke with her? On Friday afternoon. I called her on the phone. What did you talk about? Stone hesitated for a moment. Personal matters. We had a complicated relationship. How complicated? Detective, I'm a married man. I think you understand. Morgan nodded. Another married man who had a relationship with Valerie. Where were you on Friday evening between 9 and 11? At home. With my family. We had dinner together, then watched a movie. Who can confirm that? My wife and children. Wife. After interviewing Stone, Morgan was convinced that he was hiding something important. His alibi seemed too perfect, and his nervousness was obvious. Next was a meeting with Gregory Daniels. Unlike Stone, Daniels was more open, though clearly upset. I loved her, he said bluntly. I knew she wasn't perfect, but I loved her. We had been dating for over a year. When was the last time you saw her? 2 weeks ago. We had a fight. I realized she had someone else. Did you know about the other men? Gregory smiled painfully. I suspected it. In the end, I realized that I was just a source of income for her. But I still hoped she would change. Where were you on Friday night? At the office. I was working on a project until late. The security guard can confirm that. Morgan checked Daniel's alibi. It turned out to be rock solid. CCTV footage showed that he had indeed been at the office until midnight. By the end of the second day of the investigation, Morgan had a clear picture of Valerie's life, but the motive for the murder remained unclear. She cheated on men and took money from them, but that rarely led to murder. There had to be something more. The answer came unexpectedly when technicians recovered data from Valerie's damaged phone. Monday began for Detective Morgan with a long-awaited call from the crime lab. Technicians were able to recover most of the data from Valerie Kings's damaged phone, including deleted files and correspondence. Jake, you need to see this, said technician Carlos Vega when Morgan arrived at the lab. This woman had a whole collection of compromising material. On the computer screen, Morgan saw folders with men's names, each containing photos, audio recordings, correspondence, and financial documents. It was a veritable database for blackmail. Look at the JS folder, Vega pointed. Morgan opened the files. Photos of Justin Stone with Valerie in intimate situations. An audio recording of a conversation where Stone talked about insider information regarding the FDA's approval of a new drug. Correspondence where he confessed his love and complained about problems in his marriage. Now this is particularly interesting. Vega opened a text message sent on Thursday evening. JS. Okay, 500,000. But this is the last offer. And after that, you disappear forever. VK. Agreed. Meet me tomorrow at 9 at my place to hand over the money and destroy the materials. Morgan studied the correspondence. Everything pointed to Valerie blackmailing Stone, but was that a motive for murder? Carlos, anything for Friday? Yes, and it's strange. The last message was sent at 8:47 p.m. A message appeared on the screen. GD, I know what you're doing. We need to talk. I'll be there in 10 minutes. GD Gregory Daniels. Morgan felt the puzzle pieces falling into place in his head. Gregory knew about the blackmail, but how? Can you restore the correspondence with Gregory? Vega opened another folder. The correspondence between Valerie and Gregory over the past few weeks showed growing tension. Gregory suspected infidelity, demanded explanations, and Valerie tried to calm him down. But Morgan found the most interesting thing in the deleted files. An email sent by Gregory on Wednesday. "Valerie, I hired a private investigator to find out the truth about your life. What he discovered shocked me, but I still love you. Give me a chance to make it right." So it was Gregory who hired Detective Coleman to investigate. He learned about Valerie's past, about other men, and possibly about blackmail. Morgan quickly returned to the station and demanded a detailed analysis of Gregory's alibi. CCTV cameras showed that he was indeed in the office until 11:30 p.m. But what if he left? It took several hours to review the recordings from different cameras. And there it was. At 8:35 p.m., Gregory left the building through a service exit that was not monitored by the main security system. He returned at 10:15 p.m., enough time to drive to Valerie's apartment, commit the murder, and return. But additional evidence was needed. Morgan sent a team of forensic experts to search Gregory's home and office. In the trash can in the yard of his house, they found plastic gloves with microscopic traces of blood. In the garage, they found dark clothing with stains that could have been the victim's blood. On Tuesday morning, Morgan and his team arrived to arrest Gregory Daniels. "Gregory Daniels, you are under arrest on suspicion of the murder of Valerie Kings," Morgan said when Gregory opened the door of his suburban home. Gregory did not resist. He looked like a man who had been waiting for this moment for a long time. In the interrogation room, Gregory sat silently for almost an hour while Morgan laid out the evidence before him. Recovered messages, CCTV footage, physical evidence. "Gregory, we have everything. Your correspondence with Valerie, the recording of you leaving the office, physical evidence. Tell us what happened." Gregory slowly raised his head. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. "I really loved her," he said quietly. "For over a year, I thought we were building a real relationship. Yes, I knew she was expensive, but I thought it was temporary. That someday we would get married and she would become a normal wife." Morgan turned on the tape recorder. "Tell me about Friday night." Gregory took a deep breath. "Private investigator Coleman sent me a full report on Thursday. I found out everything, about the other men, about how she professionally cheated rich men. But the worst thing was that I found out about the blackmail." "How did you find out about Stone's blackmail?" Coleman intercepted several of her conversations. She was demanding money and threatening to expose him. I realized she could do the same thing to me. All my business contacts, my reputation, everything could have been ruined. Gregory paused and rubbed his face with his hands. "On Friday afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I wrote her a message saying that I knew the truth and wanted to talk. I thought I could convince her to stop this whole nightmare." "What happened at her apartment?" "I arrived around 9. Valerie let me in. She was surprised, but not scared. I started talking about what I knew about the blackmail, about the other men. I begged her to stop, offered to start an honest relationship." Gregory paused for a few minutes. She laughed. "She said I was a naive fool if I thought there was anything real between us, that tomorrow she would get $500,000 from Stone and disappear from Boston forever. And if I tried to stop her, she would tell everyone about our relationship and present me as one of her clients." Morgan saw the same pain in Gregory's eyes that he must have felt that evening. "I lost control. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen. I didn't plan to kill her. I just wanted to scare her, to shut her up. But she kept laughing, saying how pathetic I was." "And you hit her?" "Yes. The first blow was impulsive. But when I saw the blood, something broke inside me. I realized that if she survived, she would destroy my life. That's why." Gregory couldn't finish the sentence. "What did you do after the murder?" "I searched the apartment trying to find materials about me. I broke into the safe. There was a disk with files in it. I took it and several flash drives. I changed into the clothes I had brought with me. I went back to the office and pretended to have worked all night." "Where is that material now?" "I burned it all on Saturday morning, along with the clothes." Morgan nodded. Technically, Gregory was smart. but his emotional state caused him to make mistakes. Gregory Daniels, do you plead guilty to the murder of Valerie Kings? Yes, I do. After the confession, the case moved quickly. Gregory received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. His IT company went bankrupt when news of the murder hit the press. Justin Stone avoided criminal prosecution, but the SEC launched an investigation into possible insider trading. His marriage to Elizabeth fell apart after details of his affair with Valerie became public. Northeast Pharma's stock fell 30%. Morgan met with Sarah Mitchell a month after Gregory's arrest. She was the only one who genuinely mourned Valerie's death. I warned her, Sarah said in a cafe on Newberry Street. I told her she was playing with fire. But Valerie didn't listen to anyone when it came to money. Did you know about her blackmail plans? I suspected. She had been very nervous in recent weeks, but at the same time excited. She talked about a big score that would change her whole life. Sarah paused, looking out the window. You know, Detective, Valerie wasn't a bad person. She was just broken. Her childhood in poverty, her constant feelings of inferiority, all of that made her obsessed with money. She thought wealth would solve all her problems. Morgan nodded. Over the years, he had seen many people whose greed had led them to commit crimes, but rarely had the victim and the perpetrator been so closely connected. Did she get what she wanted? Sarah asked. What do you mean? Financial independence, freedom from having to depend on men. Morgan thought of the luxurious apartment, the expensive things, the packed suitcases. In a sense, yes, but the price turned out to be too high. The epilogue to Valerie King's case served as a warning to Detective Morgan about how greed and deception can ruin the lives of everyone involved in a tragedy. Valerie got the money she wanted, but didn't have time to enjoy it. Gregory lost everything, his freedom, his business, his reputation, because of his blind love for a woman who used him. Justin Stone lost his family and part of his fortune because of a moment of weakness. A year after the murder, Morgan drove past the house in Back Bay where Valerie had lived. A young family with 2 children now lived in her apartment. Laughter and children's voices filled the space that had once been the backdrop for dangerous games with human emotions and money. The case was closed, justice had prevailed, but Morgan knew that somewhere in the city, new dramas were already unfolding, where greed, lies, and deceit would once again lead to tragedy. Such was human nature, and such was his job, to sift through the wreckage of ruined lives and find the truth amid the lies. Valerie King's story was a reminder that in the pursuit of wealth, people often lose what is most precious: humanity, love, and life itself. The golden cage she built around herself ultimately became her grave.